Hi, Year 7s, and welcome back in today's science lesson. In today's science lesson, we're going to be doing a revision session on competition and adaptation, and this is in preparation for your assessments that's coming up soon. So at this point, I would like you to pause the video and read the learning outcomes, and then press play when you're ready to continue. So hopefully by the end of the lesson, we'll be able to answer this big question, in which is, how do animals cope with seasons? So for example, this Arctic fox that's living in the Arctic Circle, and they're living in this very cold climate in comparison to this desert fox, also known as the fennec fox, living in a hot desert environment. But before we go into these adaptations, let's look into competition. So you can see in this picture, there are two mice that seem to be fighting in the London Underground. But what are they fighting for? I'm going to give you 10 seconds to pause the video and just have a think about what they'll be fighting over, and then press play when you're ready. So the answer is they're actually fighting for a crumb. They're fighting for food. And this is what we're going to be looking into in competition. So competition is when organisms living in the same environment may require the same resources. In this case, it's going to be food. And when these resources are limited, competitions occurs between species. And the more similar the needs of the species, the more intense the competition. So competition is the struggle between organisms for the same limited resource. Now, for animals, there are four main factors that animals compete for. The first one is territory. They compete for water, foods, and mates. So let's have a look at the first one. So animals compete for territory. And the territories of animals contain all the resources and conditions that they need to survive. Therefore, setting up and defending a territory is vital. And a territory can be something as simple such as building a nest, or it can be a space where the animal needs to find food and reproduce in a safe environment. And if you think about your next door neighbor's cat, for example, they often fight for their territory, and they tend to mark the territory in certain ways. So you can see in this picture, the bigger cats, the lions, seem to be fighting and defending their territory here against these hyenas. Another factor that animals compete for is water. And you can see in this picture that there are numerous zebras that are drinking from this watering hole, but there are also other living organisms such as the water buffaloes who also would need some water. So these are the sort of factors that animals will be competing for: territory and water. But earlier on, we did say that animals would be competing for food. And you can see in this picture, there is this cheetah that is competing with this hyena for this zebra carcass, which is food. Another example is squirrels. So there is red squirrels and grey squirrels in the UK. However, the grey squirrels actually came from North America, and they've migrated in the UK. And you might not know this, but the red squirrels and the grey squirrels have been competing for the same resource of food, which is typically the green acorn. And now the red squirrels are actually being outcompeted by the grey squirrels. So it's very rare now to find these red squirrels. They're becoming more endangered because the grey squirrels are outcompeting them, and there are now more grey squirrels than red squirrels. So it's important that animals compete for food because they need these food for energy. They need it for to grow and to survive. And the last factor that animals compete for would be mates. So you can see in this picture where these two kangaroos are boxing each other. These are two male kangaroos, and they are fighting for a mate. They're competing to get a female kangaroo in order to reproduce. This is not uncommon with mammals. You could also see this in deers. So male deers in the breeding season from November and December, they would grow these antlers that you can see over here. And you can see that they're using it to fight each other in order to find a mate and reproduce. So just to recap on what animals compete for: territory, water, food, and mates.